This is group discussion 2. So to me, the 3 most relevant sustainable development goals for Vancouver, British Columbia are the SDGs 9, 11, and 12. Starting off with SDG 9, which is industries, innovation, and infrastructure. A large amount of Vancouver's emissions are resulting from the emissions of cars. And in Vancouver, private vehicles emit 67% of the total transportation emissions. This not only results in more climate change from greenhouse gases, but also causes smog within the city and reduces the quality of breathing air for the residents. Both public transit and the rail travel are only about 1% of the total transportation emissions each, which shows 2 things. It shows that they're underdeveloped and underused, but it also shows that maybe they're more efficient than cars because they're giving off such a low amount of emissions. If each resident's driving their own vehicle to work, getting on the freeway, and possibly getting stuck in traffic, the amount of emissions is far worse than if the majority of people hopped on the rail system or rode a bus. So I think to promote the use of public transit, the city first has to make it a more viable option for the residents. And to do so, they have to grow the range of the city which the public transit encompasses, as well as the efficiency of it. It needs to be clean and secure so that there's a good reputation, so that people are actually wanting to go on the public transit, not fearing it or disliking it. To measure the success of the actions and strategies to improve public transit, the city could analyze the annual use of the public transit by surveying the residents of the city, asking what form of transportation they use on a daily basis. Over time, if there's less and less people commuting in their own vehicles and a steady increase in people taking public transit, you could say the initiative is successful. Next up is SDG 11, which is about making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable according to the UN.org webpage. It's also related to public transit because replacing private transit in a different manner. There's more of a focus on the goal of inclusiveness, talking about SDG 11. With the way transit is right now and how safe you are and how much you can travel is primarily determined by how much money you have in the bank. According to the Daily Hive in Canada, the average cost of car ownership in Canada across the country is $13.87 per month. It's not a small amount of money, especially if you're already financially strained, struggling to pay rent. Many lower income families cannot afford a car, let alone 2 or more. This is why the city should invest in increasing the public transportation system for the sake of everybody. By increasing the amount of public transit that is viable for families, it'll give them more options other than breaking the bank to afford gas, car payments, car insurance, and maintenance. It gives lower income families a step closer to other income brackets, promoting equality of opportunity to get jobs, for their kids to do extracurricular school activities, and for families to have more money to invest in the market in the future. To measure this, the city can take note of how many families re-register their car each year and polling the populace to determine what % of citizens say they're opting for public transit rather than automobile. Finally, I want to touch on SDG 12, which is all about ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns. Vancouver's largest source of pollution is actually from buildings, believe it or not. The most notable form of consumption which buildings do is require lots and lots and lots of electricity. In order to make sure the city's not using more electricity than it creates, a solution is to set more budget aside annually for creating new forms of clean energy. Vancouver does a pretty good job of creating clean energy through its use of river waters and forest biomass. This can be further expanded upon by putting more money into these programs, as well as going to other methods such as possibly opening a nuclear power plant, which yields an incredible amount of energy relative to the relatively small amount of waste and land it requires. Vancouver's right next to water, so you can properly manage the nuclear center and keep it cool to ensure that it's safe. But regardless of the method, it doesn't have to be nuclear energy. Regardless of the method chosen to increase electricity production, city can measure how much of all of its different plants create per year in terms of electricity. And as the number goes up, it's also important to know, how clean each source is as well. So coming from wind and solar is a lot different than burning coal. So the more clean energy the city can create, the less of a deficit there's going to be and the less electricity that's required to be imported. So the more sustainable the city is.